The strategic plan was involved all faculty, all staff, all members of the board of directors, and we established a direction for the school. And one of them was to work toward equity at all levels of the institution. And one of the things is policies, is understanding that we faculty is expert in being faculty, but faculty are not better than staff. Each staff member is an expert in what they do. We hire for that, and we have to respect everyone in our policies. And once we have policies, we don't always agree with the policies, right? I mean, I don't agree with all the laws that that exist, but once the law has become law, I follow it. And they disagreed with our policies, and they chose to leave.
Can you get more specific about the policies?
I can't. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't. It's an HR thing. I can't.
Okay, I understand that. It's hard for me to believe that those people would be against equality and equity. That just does not sound like the people that I know.
It's hard for me too. It's hard for me too.
Could I blaming? That's like you're blaming them, and I think they're.
No, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming anyone. There is no blame there. I'm just answering you the question. What was presented to me is I don't agree with the direction the school is going. And I'm very sorry about that. I wish that was not the case.
Thank you.
Could I speak? I kind of wanted to tie all of these things in together because I was able to attend the other student meetings just to support my intern. And I think speaking on the equity, it feels like, I mean, as art therapists, we're always advocating for what our job is and nobody really knows it. I've personally taught, I teach an undergrad art therapy course and I teach a master's level clinical class. It is so much more work to teach my art therapy class. So many more hours go into it. Like, it's just more intentional. It's like also kind of like a therapy, group therapy in of itself. It just takes a lot more. So I think I just wanted to touch base on like whoever does take over these roles, like there's just so much more that goes into it that I think than meeting the numbers of hours of teaching and all of that stuff. So I just wanted to make sure, like, I don't want whoever takes over to get burned out either. We need whoever takes over to stay. So
thank you. Thank you.
We are definitely looking for the replacements to be board certified art therapists. That is my goal. And so again, I'm going to be posting them right after we talk with all of you, and we just talked to site supervisors. We're posting them on, just let you know, Indeed, the American Art Therapy Association, Higher Ed. And so if you know anybody, they're going to be very hard shoes to fill, but we definitely need to move forward. And we're going to try and fill those positions with people who are going to still be connected with the community.
Not only, no, they did not leave because they didn't have a doctoral degree. That had nothing to do with it.
I want to answer just real quick. Yeah, no, it's not about the doctorate degree. And the expressive arts program's all online. So that filled the gap of accessibility for students living in different states who wanted to already have maybe a counseling license or marriage, family, couples therapy license, and wanted to also learn about the expressive arts and how to integrate it into their practice. So that's completely separate. So our art therapy program is completely online. Expressive arts completely
no, the opposite.
The opposite, completely online. And it's and the curriculum is through the International Expressive Arts Therapy Association. So it's a totally different registration.
Claire? You have your hand up?
You don't have to-
Krista was before me, so I'll let her go.
Oh,
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank you. I guess I'm just feeling a little bit confused as to why we're focusing so much on open positions when we aren't getting much clarification as to what's even happening in the system. I mean, personally, I'm not interested in learning about available jobs when we're grieving the change in the program that we advocate often for. And also, just to be clear, you're saying like the program's not going away, but it is getting less funding. Isn't that why Aaron and Craig left? They were being asked to take on teaching more classes with less hours per week?
It is not getting less funding. It is getting equitable funding. It's different. I can't get.
Meaning it was getting more than the other programs previously?
I'm sorry?
Does
yes,
that mean that it was
that
getting
is-
more than other
Yes.
programs previously? Now it's being
Yes.
equal across all, even though art therapy brings in more students and
it
graduation
does not.
rates?
It does not.
It brings a lot fewer.
Okay, I thought that was something someone mentioned in the last
It
meeting.
brings a lot fewer students. A lot fewer students than the other programs. And yes, it was getting more.
Okay, but now moving forward, all programs will be getting the same level of funding?
Proportional to the number of students.
But I think it is important to also understand that when we're addressing this terminology of equity, it takes different forms. And so what the equity for the student experience is very different than the equity for the workload and requirements of the faculty and staff that are facilitating other parts that support the art therapy program specifically. We do a lot of cross sharing of courses and things like that. And so what we're focusing on is shifting how the division of labor for the functioning of the entire school operates, not changing the experience for students and the quality of what the students are going to experience. And that does require that the division of labor is made equitable. So we're looking at that on multiple different levels, not just one thing. And it's really challenging to provide that perspective without the idea that it's being presented as a defense or as a blame. It's just a dynamic that is a part of the decision-making process for those individuals to decide to leave. That has happened across the school. The art therapy specific faculty are not the only ones that are feeling the impact of those changes towards equity. So again, without going into the weeds and things like that, for everyone's benefits, it is a really huge part of it, and it can feel like deprivation when things need to be leveled out, that and in a way that hasn't been required before. But for the longevity and sustainability of the entire Adler community, it was necessary.
And I'd like to answer the question that Erica put in the chat of why we terminate their contract early instead of going to the next 3 weeks. And if we took students into consideration, that decision was made 100% based on students. When they sent a message that disparaged the school and indicated to students that the program was going to be discontinued, that we didn't know what we were going to do with the program. What happened was that night, my phone would not stop with faculty who was teaching that night, telling me, my students are freaking out. They are in a panic. They think they don't have a program. So that message did not indicate to me that there was any concern for the student. If there was a concern for the student, the correct way of going about that would be to communicate to me that they intended to leave, and in the same conversation say, what can we do to work together to make this transition easy for the students? That would have been the appropriate way. I learned of two of them leaving from the students who were panicking. So at that point, it became clear to me that continued conversation along those lines was not in the best interest of the students. So that was how the decision was made.
Really quick, I don't want to budge in line. I'm sorry, everyone. And I know I had brought this up the other day, and I apologize for reiterating myself, but I don't understand how we make such rash decisions. And again, I know it's done, there's nothing going to change, but on hearsay, on third-party information, how we can make such a immediate decision.
What third-party information? I read the message that went to the students.
From one individual.
No, the message that Craig sent to the students, signed by all three of them.
Oh, my mistake. I apologize. Yep, I apologize. I was wrong on that. When it comes to rats, I got nervous and I lost my track.
I think it's really hard because I think it's, and I'm sorry, I know you're waiting, but I think it is really important to acknowledge that the actions that was taken was so blindsiding and out of character for who we know Craig, Aaron, and Pat to be, that it's really hard to wrap our minds around the details, both for the art therapy community and all of you all as a part of the art therapy community and the Adler community, and having experiences with Craig and Aaron and Pat, personal and professional, and understand, hopefully you can understand that we also are trying to reconcile in many different ways how our experiences with them up to that point conflict and are opposite of what we have known and experienced from them. It is really difficult to reconcile the incongruence, I guess is the best term, between how we've experienced them and then that course of action that was taken. And that's not to, to diminish the idea of receiving notification of changes and expression of disagreement along the way. But that specific course of action collectively with the implications for the program itself is really incongruent with what we understand about their commitment to AGS, to the art therapy program, to the art therapy community. And now we are faced with the circumstance of reconciling that and continuing movement and our commitment to the program simultaneously. And it's just really hard. And I'm sure that there's not any set of words or explanation right now that's going to fully satisfy and support that reconciliation.
And in fact, there's nothing that is going to fully satisfy you, because there's nothing that fully satisfies us. We are still trying to understand, we're charged with managing the situation. We're doing the best we can. I'm sure we're making mistakes. So what I can guarantee is that we are doing the best we can. We are working around the clock, doing all we can to make the students there is no way for the students not to be affected. Our concern is to diminish the stress on the students to the extent that we can, which is not good enough. And we fully appreciate that it's not good enough, but it's the best we can do. I have three, Claire, Carolyn,
Yeah,
Claire.
thank you. Hello, all. Also, I want to show the representation that we got going on here. It's just a really awesome art therapy shirt that I got from Manata this last conference. So right in the beginning, you all said, like, this is offered up for feedback, for open discussion, for emotions to be expressed. And I have been trying to wrap my head around the past couple of days too, because these were three people that without them, I wouldn't have made it through this program, which I'm sure multiple other screens would not intensely, right? Like, they helped me through personal conflict. They helped me through school conflict. And so I think, I'm sorry, I forgot. I believe it was Krista who said, like, we're grieving this.
Mhm.
And that's a very hard thing to express, probably in sometimes rational, no matter how professional we all are. Like, it's hard. And it does stink hearing your perspective. Not hearing your perspective is what stinks. It's, you guys had a different interaction with those three. And so we all are feeling defensive for them, because it's like, but that's different than how we know them. And that also then would involve grieving, because we have to believe, do we believe the three? Do we believe you? And that's a weird imbalance to be stuck in. Personally, I have some, like, concerns of myself of, like, I just got my diploma in March, right? I don't technically get a walk till September, but I will be very transparent. Like, frankly, I don't want to anymore. And I don't mean to be coarse or anything, but this really has, all of my professors, and I get it, it was their choice, but it kind of also wasn't, because if they were terminated, it wasn't really their choice. But I know there was also some other things.
They were not
No,
terminated.
they were not
They
terminated.
resigned.
They resigned, and I just moved the date of their resignation, but they resigned. We did
Okay.
not terminate anybody.
I think I was just then quoting, like, what the question was of termination and what the termination was for. So I think there's just, like, the lot in the chat and the conversation. So thank you for clarifying. But it's still, like, I'm just being honest as an alum that's, like, a very fresh alum. Like, this will impact my choice about walking, because, like, I want to walk so I can see those people that made that difference in my life. And if they're not going to be there, it kind of is like, well, like, when I've met Nicole, and she was wonderful when I got to meet her at the conference. Dr. Fisher, I haven't got to meet you in person. Solange, I got to do the coffee talk. But there's also, I think about, like, when you talk about, like, the equity for the art, I then think art does deserve, like, need that extra support, because we are the ones who come to campus. We have the studio there. And I could keep rambling, but then mainly, like, I'm in a voice for students that I know have been hurt and don't feel like there's been support from administration, and felt that the message that was sent to them was being person-centered, was including social interest, was having the Adlerian ideas that we've been taught and preached, to community engage, to work with your community. And if I was the student who received that email from the professors, I would have been thankful, because I would rather have my professors reach out and be genuine and upfront with me than hear it from administration. And I'm sure that probably did mess up the intended plan, which you couldn't have predicted. but the students right now that are currently there, I don't think feel supported and don't feel like a lot of the administration choices that have been happening are with the viewpoint of students first, like the student lens. I think it's feeling very administration lens. That is just from the perspective I'm hearing from students who have reached out to me, who I've been comforting, who are just confused, stressed. And this meeting has felt very specific, like Dr. Randick, the things you gave in the beginning, that was awesome. But I don't think the students got that, because what I heard from the students doesn't match up with what I'm hearing today. And I'm just confused where that misunderstanding, misinterpretation came. I'm going to pause because I could talk, but I'm sure many of us have thoughts. And I just, yeah, thank you for giving me the space to speak, though.
Thank you for that, Claire. And there's one thing that you said that I can't explain, where the difference from what you may have heard and what Nicole shared. There were 2 student forums, and what Nicole shared today was a mix of both, but was mostly developed during yesterday's forum. The first forum was everyone was very raw, including us, and it was not. It was a very emotional forum for all of us, and it took us processing after that forum to start to develop parts of what Nicole shared today, and then the rest of it came in yesterday forum, where some of the students from the first night were there. Some were there for the first time, but it was a forum where everyone could start looking forward. That first one, none of us was in a place that we could look forward. I hope that answers that part of it. I don't know if Nicole or Rashida have anything different to add to that.
No, that's it in a nutshell. And then what came out of that was the weekly communication that is going to be ongoing with the students as well.
I hope I didn't interrupt. That's the one thing with Zoom. That did kind of help clarify, because again, you couldn't have predicted. I guess then that thought and feedback would be then maybe there could have been time for a pause to let people collect. But that I think it was Dr. Fisher, you brought up like ways that we can support students, and we're doing what we can to make sure that this has least amount of impact. Everybody said that, but I think there was one point made, Dr. Fisher. But I think my then advocacy for the current students would be they need a break from this, whether it's getting information that's positive, whether it's information that's negative, whether it's the school, the classes they're taking right now. We all have gone through our master's program, and it was personally the most taxing thing I chose to do, like mentally, emotionally, educationally, financially. And I think the current students, and I'm voicing their voice. This is not my perspective. This is something that's been brought to me, is it's waves and emotions and information overload that it's hard to focus on other classes, and it's hard to get a homework assignment done, and it's hard to focus on anything besides this. And I would just like to advocate that those current students get some grace from either other professors, get some grace of like, hey, we're going to give the art therapy students like an excuse from class for the week or 2 or something. I know there's probably some requirements that politically, or not policy wise, excuse me, that can't be done, but I just would really advocate that they get some sort of break to just process, because that's what Adler teaches us, is self-care constantly. And
Yeah.
So
I would say
Dr.
that
Yatu, go ahead.
we are working with each individual student to develop a plan for them to be successful in their current classes and take the care that they need. So as appropriate for each individual student, there are extensions granted and things like that. And courses have to be completed in order for the integrity of the degree to maintain. So there's a balance between both of those things happening.
And I do
But
want
one
to
thing that we have done is the art therapy students, the extension for incomplete. There are usually very specific reasons why someone qualifies for an incomplete. And we have relaxed that art therapy students can opt to have an incomplete and finish up the next semester. Finish
And
up.
so, but I want to add the biggest caveat here is that communication is sitting in my inbox right now. And that communication to students is going to go out tonight. So I committed every Thursday to communication, and tonight's communication is going to be about them getting these extensions for their courses. So this has not been communication that has been readily, broadly spread to them just yet. So that is something that we, after yesterday's forum, we developed all of their talking points and tried to bring to fruition each one of them that they were asking. So what the ones that we could at least do. So and that, yeah, the ones that we could do. So that is one of them. So that will be going out right after this.
If I could ask a quick question. So I've
I'm
known,
sorry, there's Carolyn who's
oh,
been
sorry,
waiting pretty patiently.
go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Coraline. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
graduated- that's okay. I graduated last spring. And I guess I just feel really grateful for this opportunity to hear about what happened. I'll just echo that I feel a lot of sadness and a lot of grief because they really, like many have said, just impacted my experience at Adler, helped me through times that felt really, really challenging as a student. And so I feel, yeah, just able to kind of hold the grief that everyone is bringing today and coming with. And I was able to join yesterday for a part of the student forum a little bit, and just popped in. And I think yesterday and today, there's been kind of this sentiment that, by Aaron and Craig and Pat emailing the students that was like deeply unprofessional, and that they were in a sense like asking the students to fight their battles for them, and that was just really out of character. And I can see that, like, I know that I can see that side, but I also feel this, I guess I'm just feeling like, especially here at Adler, surprised that it's not viewed through the lens of this like sort of like more grassroots or direct plea to the community, our community and of students, as a way of either trying to make change or trying to make sure students know what's going on first. And I feel like I know that we have to move forward. I know that like that messaging for everyone at Adler is probably really important right now. And you guys are like in the trenches, just figuring out like how to move forward and what's next for the program, because presumably they're not coming back. But just without knowing like all the pieces, there are aspects of it that just feel a little like cold to me, or like, there's of course, policy and best practices are important. But I guess it just feels like it was not a very like human process. And I think especially like Aaron for me is someone who just always has been this person that really is not shied away from offering a more human side. And in particular, I mean, I don't know if other people can relate to this, but during my time at Adler, like there was a really different vibe in the counseling classes versus the art therapy classes. Like the counseling classes were wonderful, but definitely more, kind of informational. And the art therapy classes were really, really personal. And someone talked about this earlier, just how much goes into the process of like learning an art therapy directive and then experiencing it together and sharing your personal experience with others. It's just a really human experience. a very Adlerian experience. And I guess my concern is just that that will be kind of worked out, or that will be missed. And so often, like, art therapists are misunderstood. I'm sure all of us have at one point or another had to really fight for our understanding of what art therapy is. And I just am curious about, you know, if there was yeah, some misunderstanding. That's my wondering, I guess, is like, was this another experience of art therapists not being understood for what they need or want? I said a lot of things there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maddie?
Yeah, I think I can actually piggyback right off of that. You know, I am very familiar with Craig and Erin. I'm probably 10 years post-grad almost, working in the field right now. And one of the things about them is like they maintain their connections and they feel really strongly about the art therapy program, and building up, you know, art therapists in the community to make their own name as art therapists. And I think they've been incredibly supportive with, you know, organizations like Minata and like everybody involved with getting licensure. And it feels like we're not answering a question about this specialty program, which I think maybe is where I'm getting lost. I understand the thought behind the specialty program, but it also feels like, why is that even there if we have this master's program for art therapy? One question I do have is, were they involved with the development of that specialty program? I understand it's all online, and I understand it's something for the clinical counseling, you know, track and whatnot, but I just don't understand. It feels like there was a major disconnect between those two, and maybe they were connected. Maybe Craig and Erin were involved in the development of it. But that's my question: is number one, were they involved? And if they weren't involved, why not? I'm gonna leave it at that.
Liz? And then I just want to make sure that we hear everyone, and then we can go back and follow up with some of the questions that are being asked live and in the chat.
Oh, I just want to make sure that we're making note of what she had just asked, just so we don't forget. Okay. So I have really bad anxiety, so I forget things a lot. So I wrote a bunch of stuff down. You had talked about equity earlier when I had forgot my initial rant. Equity between staff. So I'm going to bring it back to like my experience again in the DOC. They'll break down everything, like how many hours of group, how many hours of this, how many hours of psychoed, how many hours, and then they divide caseload like that. With this, I feel like it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's coming at a quantitative versus qualitative. So when it comes to art therapy, like we all know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So like LPCC, LMFT, they're licensed in the state. They're set. Yes, there's CEUs and everything like that. But when it comes to art therapy, there's also advocacy for our field. There's also emotions. How do you like learning how to put in words documenting emotions and images and everything like that, and teaching students how to do that, plus also advocacy for what you're teaching in the government, trying to prove to everyone that you're legitimate. So that takes an enormous amount of time, and also finding sites that will accept art therapy students as art therapy, and being able to actually practice art therapy takes an incredible amount of time to actually find those sites and everything. And I invited Haley Fox, but she was busy, but she says hi to everyone. But I want to make sure that when it comes to equity, we're keeping in mind the quality versus hours.
So that's what I want to respond immediately because it's easy and short. When I'm talking equity, I'm not talking money. I'm talking all aspects of equity. I'm not talking workload. I'm talking all that end.
Okay.
And part of that is respecting the needs of other professionals, not necessarily a program, but the staff. The work that the staff does is just as important as the work that faculty does. And if we don't,
I'm sorry, Solange, really quick, can I ask what's the difference between staff and faculty?
administrative staff, admissions, registrar, financial aid, they are
Oh,
all staff,
okay.
right, with specialized functions. And when we're talking institutional equity, it is, the functions are different, but everyone needs to be respected the same way, and the needs of each needs to be met. And so if I focus on the needs of a program instead of focus on the needs of an office, I'm not practicing equity.
Okay.
So I just wanted to address that when we're talking equity, it's a much bigger thing than workload. That's all.
Okay.
And I'll let Rashida and Nicole address the other questions that were asked.
Yeah, so there was question about, Liz also, asked about and now I just lost my train of thought because I'm trying to read the follow in the chat and then also respond. But it'll come to me. I think there's a question about Craig and Aaron's participation in the expressive arts program and whether that is diverting students from the art therapy program to the expressive arts certification. The answer is no, it's not diverting students. There's very specific and different admissions criteria. Those students that would be eligible for admissions into the other programs, clinical mental health, marriage, couples, family therapy, co-occurring disorders, that criteria does not include the prerequisites for art therapy, which is to have a foundation in art, to have all of those studio arts credits that you all are required to have before entering into the master's program. That's not required for those other specializations. So it's not diverting eligibility from that program to and adding the expressive arts certification and specialty to their degree.
Can you elaborate a little bit further, sorry, on whether or not they were involved in that development? Because I understand that I understand the distinction you're making, but at the same time, as somebody who's in the field who went through the program, and as everybody, even in the students recently have discussed, it's an intense program. And I do believe that my programming and the education I received through the art therapy program made me a better therapist overall. And to be honest, hearing about this specialty program, when I first heard about it, it felt like, wow, we're just creating an opportunity for people to identify as an art therapist, but really not have the full training.
That's
and
a
so,
misunderstanding.
but that's what it feels like. That's what the label looks like, right? But I think there's
different than understanding that there are distinctions in professional identity and scope of practice and specialization. And so I think,
yeah, but I think what you've offered online as education for people who can sign up for it, it almost delivers the message that once you get this specialty, then you can consider yourself a creative arts therapist or even label yourself for clients. But regardless, I think my first question is still not being answered, which is, were Craig and Aaron involved in the development of that specialty program?
The answer is no to that.
Okay. Well, that's probably part of what this is all about, right?
Why would it be?
It's been completely separate. They haven't, it's been
I mean, the program does not affect the art therapy program in any way, shape, or form. The program does not attract prospective students that want to be an art therapist because the program does not qualify people who complete it. for the art therapy credential. The people who add that specialty, their primary, their real professional identity is one of either a mental health counselor or a marriage, couple, and family counselor or addictions counselor. They do not identify themselves as art therapists. They get a registered expressive arts therapy
I don't like it.
credential that is not comparable to the art therapy credential. It's, I
Well,
mean,
I think that this deserves some reflection for you guys. As you said that you've been doing at the beginning of this meeting, you guys have been doing a lot of introspection. I think that this is an area to reflect upon, because as an alumni, I look at this and I think this is maybe an area that is frustrating for an alumni to look at and see. And maybe it was potentially, and from the chat, it looks like it was concerning for Erin and Craig. And if they were also not involved in it, and it's something very similar that's being offered within the school, I think this is just something to reflect upon, for administration to reflect upon, truly.
thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Angela, and then, is it Krista? And then we have Natasha that's had her hand raised.
Let Natasha go.
Thank you. I'm on my phone. I don't know how to work it, so thank you so much. There's many of us here on the board, are so close to licensure. That expressive program is so detrimental. So yes, we identify as art therapists, but we have to practice under another license. So the program allows other people to also do that without having to be an art therapist. That is a huge oversight. And we're so close to license. You guys could have talked to Erin and Craig, you would have known we're literally probably a year, and well, now longer, but we were so close. And if that could have been held off just until we got that art therapy license, so much of us would have been able to breathe. But now people can take 12 credits, use their title as this with training in expressive arts therapy, which basically we're doing because we don't have a license of our own. And so who's going to opt, without going through you guys, without talking to you? They're going to see there's two options. Well, I'm already licensed. I'm going to go do this for just 12 credits. So I know it wasn't a question, but I think there's a huge oversight here.
Angela, did you?
Yeah. So I'm probably post-grad 2 years now. And I sense a lot of feelings. I already have my own feelings about, as an alum of AGS, and my transition into my professional career, but I'm just really concerned, and I really want to advocate for the current students and the current alums, and just what are we doing outside of the weekly communication to provide space to grieve and space to process. I really just want to see, like, is Adler doing something where we're having, weekly groups space where we can all have a time to process, whether that's art making, whether that's just a space where we can all go through this and work through the emotions of this, because this is a lot. This is a huge hit. I'm very surprised by receiving this email and hearing kind of what has happened in the work. So I also want to advocate for, all of us want to learn more and hear more about what's going on and the why, which we might not get the full why that we're looking for. But also, what are we doing to provide space for that grieving piece as well? So just want to bring that to light, whether that's art making, weekly groups, I don't know, but something that's added that isn't just talking, that can also be a form of connection and doing.
And we talked in previous forums about opening up the space the studio and Adler Graduate School as a whole, outside of class time, of course, for community building and for processing, and we're still committed to that. Krista?
Just coming back to what Natasha was saying as well, I just want to really reiterate how frustrating it is that you keep saying the expressive arts therapy program is completely different than the art therapy program. And it feels like more evidence that the administration is like really not understanding what art therapy is and what the field needs and what they're moving towards. Also, sorry, Monada folks, I need to get more involved in Monada, because like as someone who sends undergrad students to Adler often, unfortunately, because it's our only option, even though, you know, I don't think Aaron and Craig were perfect. And I know many of us had a really difficult time through that program. I think a lot of that is because of the state of art therapy in its non-licensure status. And for a graduate student, I know many who are looking at Adler right now, the fact that they can get an expressive arts therapy certificate rather than going back to school and getting studio classes done in their undergrad and then living in this ambiguous entity that doesn't truly have a licensure. Like, why would I do that? How can I convince folks to do that path when you're offering them an easy online 12 credit course that if you're unfamiliar with art therapy, you're going to think you're an art therapist now. Like, it just feels really like a lack of insight around the need for protection for what art therapy is, and advocating that folks see that program fully through if that's something that they want to involve in their practice. It feels like if someone was to create a weekend somatic course rather than to take a full, you know, somatics training and specialty, you're creating an easy way out for folks rather than protecting art therapy. And I guess that's what makes me the most frustrated, and makes me not want to send people to Adler anymore, on top of the concern that I already had from my own experience and the people in my cohort's experience. So please consider rethinking the statement that you think that they're different. They're not. And for anyone who's not as deep into the art therapy world as the art therapists in this room, they're not going to understand those differences. Thank you.
Know where I'm getting confused, Krista, and I'm really thinking about what you're saying, and I'll continue to think about it. But I'm confused that the former president of the American Art Therapy Association is the director of a program that does that in a school that has expressive arts therapy and art therapy. And they classify that as two different programs. And that is the past president of the American Art Therapy Association. So I'm having trouble. I'm really trying to understand this, but I'm having trouble based on that. So just, and I don't need to discuss this because my knowledge is limited, but for me, that is a disconnect, and I'll continue to explore that.
Please do.
But I appreciate this conversation, you know, being an art therapist myself and a registered expressive arts therapist. This is really interesting. I'm not saying much because I'm listening, and I hear you, and I understand that could be confusing, and I'm trying to figure out how, you know, I hope it doesn't hurt the licensure, but what can we do to move that licensure forward for art therapists? Because I think it's really important. I've been an art therapist for over 20 years. So I'm listening. Thank you. I really appreciate all this feedback. Thank you.
Dr. Randick, then since you are an art therapist, like, has this made you concerned? I know you are in Iowa and I'm not as familiar. Seems like Jessica Waldron's really familiar with licensure state to state, so I'll use her as my, if it's right. Like, how is this, like, are you hearing and feeling the impact that we're feeling as like so close to licensure as an art therapist? Like, do you resonate with some things that are being said tonight?
Yeah. I'm reflecting. I'm gonna have to take all this in. This is a lot. So I am, yeah.
and putting my therapy cap on, I will also say, like, yes, like I don't know who organized this alumni meeting officially, and I wish it didn't seem like this was part of the initial plan to have alumni be involved, and maybe you got a lot of requests for it. But I also will say, like, this is obviously probably really overwhelming for you three, Solange, Dr. Randick, and Dr. Fisher. So, like, I hope you know that none of us are coming with the intent of like harming your mental health in any way, or like coming at it. We're just giving this space. And I will speak for myself, and I'm sure many agree too, that I hope you also are getting time to like reflect, have that self evaluation, have that chance to like take care of yourself too. I'll recommend maybe using some art to process, being an art therapist. But I also want to just make that known that we also hope that you, after the massive information that's been asked of you and demanded of you, that you get that space too.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And yes, talking with the alumni wasn't a plan from the beginning. It was just not the first thing. The first line of action was the students. And today was the day for site supervisors and alumni. As I said, we are very aware of the different stakeholders and trying to connect with all the groups. We just had to prioritize, and as you said, it's heavy, it's a lot. We are trying to stay focused on what needs to happen, and we are human, we have feelings, and we have a lot of them right now.
Can I say something? I've been intentional about not saying too much. I don't carry the professional identity as an art therapist. I believe in all of the expressive arts as a very valuable way to process emotions and to support wellness. It is critically important. And I'm hearing something beyond the school itself that is disturbing, and that is diminishing one professional identity for the sake of promotion of another. That there is room to respect that there are so many ways to support and promote healing, and to advocate for your position and for the importance of your specific approach to healing, but to do that simultaneously while diminishing other professional identities, and to suggest that they're not as viable. And I know it wasn't said directly, but the implications of the language that's been used is really concerning. And I'm just going to encourage some thinking and some processing around that. We in Adler Graduate School have supported the art therapy program for as long as it's been in existence, with the allocation of all of the resources that it needs and has needed. That is not going to change. And it is important for equity, for promoting healing across the scope of people that want to receive mental health care, that they have as many opportunities and options to receive healing. For some, that may be the visual arts and what happens with art therapy. And for some, that is body-based movement. For some, it is talk. For some, it is dance and music. All of those ways of processing that are inherently indigenous to many communities across the globe are things that we are working collectively in the mental health profession to legitimize and make real. Art therapy is one of them, and there are so many others. It's just really important to be conscientious of that there's room for both. to be legitimate ways of processing and promoting healing simultaneously. And it doesn't diminish the importance of any one of them at any given time. My eyes are bad. Is it Shandy? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that we're diminishing the importance of those other therapies. I think my concerns lie with the 12 credit program where we're dipping our toes in all these different disciplines, and going out into the workforce and saying, I'm a creative arts therapist, I can do this, I can do that, where I only have so much training in each discipline. That kind of makes sense. I think that that could do harm to clients if I'm not fully trained or have enough background or information or practice or internships in that specific discipline to go out and say, oh, I can do music therapy now. I can be a, body movement therapist. I think that's where my concerns lie, and where with all the training that we do go through for the art specific therapy, having somebody out there with an LPCC license and a creative expressive therapies emphasis, having them doing these art therapy techniques and potentially harming clients because they don't really know what they're getting into.
Yeah, I understand that. And so one of the things that I'm hoping that you all believe in is that Adler Graduate School is very conscientious about providing quality training, that we emphasize ethics along the way in all of the programming that we offer. So to question that we would offer something that would allow someone to enter the field without full understanding of the scope of practice for their work is I'm at a loss for words for one specific word to describe it, but it feels that because this set of circumstances is what it is, that now there's a questioning of the integrity of the entire school and the work that we've been doing for a long time, that I've been able to be a part of since 2014, and have been very proud of the quality of the education that we provide for all specialty areas. The rigor of the program is there for all specializations. So again, we are choosing as a school to promote access to mental health care. That includes a variety of specializations. And to do that with integrity for every single student, that they understand the scope of their license, the scope of their certification along the way. So yes, there is so much room for questioning the implications of the course of actions that have been taken and how that impacts the school, the current students, and the art therapy community at large. But to question the integrity of our choices to provide academic training is something else. And I'm going to encourage you, even though those direct words were not used, the sentiment and the implications have been there.
We are running out of time, so let's see. Natasha has her hand up. Natasha?
Yeah, I just want to respond. I don't think that was, well, at least I'll speak for myself. That wasn't my intent. My intent was, I wasn't trying to put down the program. I was saying for our state, the difference would be an art therapy license versus the registration. So I hope you didn't take from, I don't know who you were talking to, but I hope that's not what you got from what I was saying, because that's not at all what I was saying.
It's not
I was
directed
saying
at
that
one
from
person, it's the sentiment overall of what has been being communicated. It wasn't directed at any one person. It's the sentiment of questioning the integrity of the education that we are delivering.
Okay.
And
I
if
guess I
that's
didn't
where
hear
we're
that.
at in our brief, in our open forum, I think that there should be space for that.
There's space to, yes, to express
I don't
your
feel like you
feelings
should be
and your
shamed for
concerns.
feeling question.
There is
And it is appropriate to say, this is how I'm receiving that information. These are my feelings about the implications of what you are communicating. It goes both ways. So you get to have your feelings, and we get to have our feelings about what you're expressing, especially when it is delivering a message that is questioning. So yes, we are holding space for your feelings and your questions, and attempting to provide information. And I hope that you also receive that we are committed to this and are concerned that what is being communicated to us and perhaps in the broader community is that somehow the integrity of the school has diminished, that we're choosing things that don't align with the mission of the school, that we're not being Adlerian in our approach. All of those implications, all of those sentiments have been expressed. We can problem solve together and move towards solution while holding all of the feelings. And some of those feelings are concerning that now our integrity is questioned.
I want to apologize if that's
feelings
something that I
about
gave
that.
off. I want to clarify that what I'm concerned about is the institution interested in moving forward with the uniqueness of art therapy licensure in Minnesota, because the addition of the expressive arts therapy certificate feels like it's not to the alumni community.
Yes, we are, and we always have been.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Liz and Diane, and then we need to wrap up.
Sorry, I'm sure you guys are sick of me by now. So okay, I'm speaking for myself. I absolutely love expressive arts therapy. Don't get me wrong. Went to school for art therapy. I have my LPCC, got my ATR, all that. And I love incorporating music and all of these things. And I'm not discrediting expressive arts therapy. I mean, Haley Fox was my fucking god for 2 years. Like, she got me into this. It's not diminishing or saying that that's not the best practice, or like, I'm not diminishing any modalities. If you want to practice just LPCC, if you want to practice just art therapy, things like that. I think it's just, and I love Adlerian. We're all humans. We're all vulnerable. Like, it's disheartening only because we went through, I went through 3 years at Adler and went through a 2-year internship and did this on top of this and this and this to get my art therapy degree. And it just seems really easy looking back on it that, okay, here come the dogs, that I can now just spend X amount of money, take 12 credits, and now I can do this. It's not diminishing that how powerful and great these practices are by any means. So Dr. Rashid, I don't want to diminish anything that you said. It just seemed a little aggressive coming back at us and kind of scolding us for bringing these opinions forward. And it might have been how they were delivered or something like that, but that's not what we're saying. We're Adlerians. We love everything. Like, we love everybody, humanistic approach. It just feels a little bad to kind of end this on a negative note of kind of that, how dare you? And I guess that's just how I feel.
Thank you, Liz. Diane?
Yeah, I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you being able to have the alumni voice how we feel about this. I was the second person to walk as an art therapist at Adler. I graduated 2010. I was Aaron's very first intern at Fairview. I still owe $150,000
I'm on camera.
in student loans. I'm old. I will be paying those loans until I'm dead. And the frustrating part for me is to know that I don't know what it costs for somebody to get an expressive arts certificate. But my guess is
The phone's
somewhere
about to die.
around, I bet I would be saving at least $50,000 or more. And my guess is that they're probably going to be able to get the same job that I could get. Because people out there don't know any better. They don't. I'm sorry. I've been in the field for 12 years now. There are people that pass themselves off as art therapists. And it's not your fault. It's not. That's just reality. So that's my frustration. I'm sad. I'm really sad. I'm sad for the loss of Craig and Aaron.
One of the board members came
And
back.
I want to thank you
Did you hear what I was saying?
for letting us express our frustration and for hearing us. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate all of you being here. You gave us a lot to think about. I appreciate the respectful tone, and that it was, I didn't feel attacked. I felt that y'all were expressing your feelings and thoughts in a way that allowed me to hear them, and I appreciate that. We will continue to be in touch. I will think about, I'm sure we all made notes. We're gonna process this and see, like in every meeting of this type, there are things that there are ideas that can be used and others that you don't find a way to use, which does not make them any less relevant. So that's it for me. I really thank you. I don't know if Nicole, Rashida, if y'all have anything that you want to add. Appreciate your being here, and we'll stay in touch.